Hi, how's it going? My name is Dalton Evans. Thanks for checking out my video. I really appreciate it. Today we're going to be talking about Control, and particularly the release of it on Xbox Game Pass, and that comes out in a few days on December 3rd. And what we're going to talk about in today's video, I'm going to give you 3 reasons why you should give Control a shot whenever it does eventually hit Game Pass in a few days. In today's video, we're going to be talking about a couple of different things that'll make Control a must-play for you. Those things are the story, also the setting, and the overall gameplay. We'll also talk about some of the complaints that you might have as you start the game. So part of the reason that the gameplay is so good is because of how tightly wound and how fluid it is. Jesse is the main character of the game, and when you first start off the game, you don't really have a whole lot. You've got a pistol that is gifted to you by the Bureau, and that's the organization that you're in. And you've got different powers that eventually you'll gain access to, and by the end of the game you are this complete badass who has so many different abilities that you can use at your disposal. But when you start out the game, you don't have a whole lot, and you gradually get more. But what makes the game so fun, in my opinion, is how fluid you can gradually implement all of these abilities into your arsenal of weapons that you use when you're fighting against the enemy of the game, which in this case is called the Hiss. The gameplay of Control is primarily fighting against the Hiss, taking over areas of the Bureau that have been infected by their presence and cleansing them, and sending them back to the dimension that they came from. I think it's the dimension. It's been a while since I played the game. And it's in that gameplay against the Hiss that the game really has a unique tone set for itself. It's a lot like other games that Remedy has made, like Quantum Break, like Alan Wake. It has its own really weird tone that it sets for itself, and the gameplay really emphasizes that, because the Hiss come in all kinds of shapes and sizes. They take over the people that are normal workers in the Bureau and kind of evolve the workers to whatever they need to, because the Hiss itself is a living organism. And when you're fighting it, it's constantly evolving, constantly changing into different diverse enemy types that you have to counter, and you have to know how to fight. I mentioned that the different abilities in the game Control are what make it a really enjoyable experience. And if I had to equate it to anything, the first thing that I thought of whenever I started playing the game and I started getting more abilities was you're basically playing as Jean Grey, who has telekinesis herself. And that's one of the things that you'll really rely on in the game, is the ability to grab stuff out of the environment, grab hold of enemies. You'll also be able to make yourself fly and levitate, and those are all things. I don't know if Jean Grey could levitate. I'm sure in some storylines she could, but the abilities that you get in the game really mirror a Jean Grey experience in video game format. So whenever Remedy makes a game, they always make really interesting worlds to explore alongside those games whenever you're playing them. Whether you're playing Alan Wake, whether you're playing Quantum Break or Control, each world that you explore in those games has a lot of interesting details that are really fleshed out. So for example, Alan Wake is all about living in the nightmare that is the book that Alan Wake is writing. Quantum Break is all about time travel after an accident that the main character has. Control is no different. When you visit New York in Control and you arrive at the Bureau, it's very apparent that things here are very strange. You don't see anyone when you enter the lobby, and then when you do finally start seeing people, they're levitating, and it just kind of goes further from there. You encounter the Hiss, and things progress further, but Remedy games always leave you with a really interesting world to explore, and Control is definitely a contender for this factor. Coming up in a little bit, we'll talk about the complaints that I did have with the game, because there are some things in the game that should be addressed. But before we get to that, we're going to talk about the story. The story is weird. That's a good way to put it in just one word. It's really weird. But if you can stick with it, it's worth it. So the story of Control is about Jesse Faden trying to find her brother. Now, in events that happen before the game starts that we don't see, or made aware of them eventually, the two of them go to a junkyard. And while they're at this junkyard, an altered world event, which is talked about quite frequently in the Bureau and in the story of Control, this event causes the Bureau to capture Jesse's brother, and as a consequence, Jessie spends a lot of her life trying to get her brother back. And at the start of Control, you are basically the new boss in the game of the Bureau for whatever reason. And it'll make more sense as the story progresses. But the whole story is about her trying to figure out where her brother is and what happened to him from the point of which they were both in the junkyard and he was captured. The game is not without its faults, though. One of the biggest complaints that I had consistently was the map. And I think a lot of people probably had the same issues that I had with it. The problem with the map is that whenever you hit the button for it, it didn't always give you the details you were looking for. Sometimes, I remember, I would open up the map and it would just have like basically grayed out boxes that didn't actually describe like the rooms or the levels or really anything. You were just kind of left grasping at like, what is this? Now, eventually what would happen would be I would try to actually access the map a few times, and I found that sometimes the solution was that you could open the map up and then close it and then open it up and then close it. Kind of a really exhaustive effort. I mean, there wasn't any reason to do that, but I mean, the map is a pretty big part of the game, and ultimately whenever you can't easily get that information, it's frustrating, and it makes a lot of people probably not want to play the game anymore. And that issue may have been fixed at this point, I'm not really sure, but from whenever I played it, it was definitely an issue that deserves to be taken into account when you're playing the game. Another thing that can kind of be a factor in the game, especially early on, whenever you're just kind of coming to grips with what the game is about, the tone of the game, what's actually going on in the Bureau, the tone can be a little obscure and a little abstract for some people's tastes. The gameplay itself is phenomenal. It's really, really good, but I can see a lot of people kind of getting shaken off and kind of off-put by just how weird the game actually is. I mean, we're talking real Twin Peaksy, really weird stuff going on, and the characters in the game just kind of brushed off as like, it's not a big deal, it happens every Monday. I mean, it's just like this is a world that really embraces itself, and if you're not ready for the ride, then it might be a little bumpy at first getting onto it and just kind of coming to grips with what this world is. So those are my thoughts on Control. It's a great game, it really is. If you have Xbox Game Pass and you haven't played it yet, pick it up, especially if you've got a Series X. It'll run even better than the old last-gen versions. It's got a great story, it's got a great atmosphere to it, super creepy, super weird. If you're a fan of like weird stuff like Twin Peaks, you'll fit right in with the game and you'll probably love it. The map might be a little much to handle, especially whenever you really need the information that it can give you. I think I actually even looked up a map online and just referred to that because I couldn't consistently get the map to work, but maybe it's been addressed at this point. Who knows? I haven't checked it out recently. I might have to go back and do it again just to see if they've updated any of the stuff in the game. But with that being said, if you liked the game, if you liked Control, hit that like button for me. I greatly appreciate the support. Comment down below if you liked Control and what your favorite part of the game was. I'm Dalton Evans, and I'll talk to you next time.